just start. I'll just start with the introduction. So everybody who came late at night and it's snowing outside. So I hope we'll make this nice and cozy. I don't know about you, but if it's just me, but it feels to me like the world is exploding around us with COVID and the war in Ukraine and inflation and rocky democracies. And in my mind, climate change is underlying all of this and their energy transition and underlying climate change, because climate change is anthropomorphic, is people's greed and wanting more. So we have Dr. Sarkar, Professor Sarkar here with us tonight, who's going to refreshingly talk with us about wanting less, about degrowth, and a term that he invented, minimalonomics. I practiced that, and he's going to talk with us about that. Just a bit about Professor Sarkar. So Atanu Sarkar was trained in medicine and public health in India and served various international agencies in India and Ethiopia. He further studied at Queen's University before joining the Memorial University of Newfoundland. Currently, he is a professor at the Division of Community Health and Humanities, Faculty of Medicine, and he teaches undergraduate medical students and graduate students of public health. His research interests, which I think he's going to talk about today, are the planetary health crisis, sustainable development, ecosystem and health, and indigenous health. And he is one of the founders of Cape Newfoundland Regional Committee. So thank you very much, Professor Sarkar, for joining us. And I'll give the stage to you.
Thank you, Dr. Nevo. Nevo, right? Sorry, my pronunciation is wrong. It is okay. Thank you, and Ankita, and also appreciate others for sparing your time. I know that after days long grueling work, you must be very tired. I try to make it a little bit more funny and try to keep you awake. Also, it is now 9:30 here actually, so we are Eastern, and okay. So before I start, again, I thank for giving me an opportunity to talk about a very novel economic model I have introduced. I know that it will be a little difficulty to pronounce the first word of the title. I hope one day it will be quite familiar. People will be familiar. So let's start with my presentation plan. So basically, I made a couple of structures, structure the whole presentation. First, I'll talk about the planetary health crisis, the three major pillars, and the current level of consumption is a snapshot. I strongly believe, and I think we all believe, that our insatiable consumption is the main driving force for current planetary health crisis, and how it is affecting, how it can be managed. That is that is a challenge, and I'm trying to address this issue from different angles, how we can address, not by current way of addressing planetary health crisis. So we talk about the consumption, human behavior, and minimalist lifestyle, which is key for current planetary health crisis management. And I'll talk about three major economic model, which is used in very academic discourse and also partly in environmental management, behavioral economics for pro-environmental decision making, circular economy as a technological solution, ecological economics for equity and justice, and I integrate in a minimalonomics as a model. And basically, it is providing the institutional framework for minimalist lifestyle without compromising well-being, prosperity, and equity and justice. And since all of you are from healthcare, I try to explore how the minimalonomics can be appropriate and relevant in the healthcare setting as well. So let's start with what is planetary health crisis. And I mean, you don't need to be a climate scientist or environmentalist. We all, as a conscious citizen, we have noticed the kind of crisis period we are actually undergoing, and things are getting bad to worse. And the main three factors: climate change, which is unprecedented heat, drought, extreme weather conditions. You've seen the forest fire in one hand in British Columbia, the towns like Lytton is completely decimated. And on the other hand, we are getting eastern part of Canada Maritime. We have seen Hurricane Fiona totally devastated part of Newfoundland and PEI, Nova Scotia. We have seen Hurricane Ian, how devastated the Florida, and also got Hurricane Nicole, which is absolutely untimely in the first time in 40 years in November. So everything is totally topsy-turvy. Everything is unpredictable, and seeing things are getting worse. Biodiversity loss, we're losing, the millions of plants and animal species, and environmental contamination. There is no remaining pristine place on Earth. I mean, if you go to the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the ocean, you will find plastics. If you go to the Everest, you will find the plastic and the contaminants. If you go to the deepest part of Amazon forest, you will find pesticides or even the plastic and other contaminants. So there is no place on Earth where you can find absolutely pristine. And these are also not isolated. Climate change, biodiversity loss, environmental contamination, all are linked. For example, climate change is melting ice in Arctic. So all these chemicals which are banned in past, for example, DDTs, PCBs, all stored in the ice shelf, these all are melting, coming out. Now there is a surge of those chemicals also in ocean. So you will find the biodiversity loss is also contributing climate change also contributing to biodiversity loss. So there are very complex interrelations, and as a result, our planet is now in life support. And being a physician, you know that when the patient is in life support, they need constant monitoring, constant care, and taking curative measures. Otherwise, patient may die. Our planet is actually in that same condition, is in life support. And unfortunately, we humans who consider ourselves the most intelligent creatures on Earth, but we are not showing responsible behavior, and we are actually in a very crisis mode. And that is very frustrating. And we're having COP26, COP27. I don't know how many COP will come out in future, but still we're struggling for the basic argument to get resolved and move forward. So what is my personal and primary observation and my argument is the consumption. We consume so much in we just buy and consume and consume. It is just like an addiction in every level, and it is unending story, and we don't get satisfied. We buy more, but we don't get satisfied and buy more, but we don't realize that every product we buy, even if we don't use it, has its own environmental footprint. So there's a water footprint, carbon footprint. So let's take an example of fast fashion. I think all of you know that fast fashion is it's one of the most I mean one of the major concern now as far as climate change and biodiversity loss or environmental contamination is concerned. We are getting cheap and low quality clothes everywhere. We buy as much as possible and we dispose it immediately. So I mean, it shows that half of the clothes we buy, we dispose it in a year. I mean, average time of garment we wear, it is now the duration has become 1/3 or less. And even if we say having 10 pairs of jeans in the closet, maybe you wear few of them regularly, some of them maybe almost untouched. If there is some the discount, we don't hesitate. We again go and buy. So it's a kind of sickening, but it's a reality that we don't stop buying, but we don't realize its impact in the environment. You know that the for textile industries now you buy so much stuff. Now it is equivalent to 98 million tons of non-renewable resources. That includes water and hydrocarbons. And it is now very common data now being used everywhere that is found that one pair of jeans is equivalent to 10,000 liters of water. That means that this water actually being equivalent to the production of cotton, because cotton needs water. So the country which produces cotton, they don't make threads. So it is going to another country, they make threads. Then the thread that is transferred to another country, making fabric. Then from fabric going to another country, like Bangladesh, they're making the end product, and then transported to rest of the world. And all this kind of production, transportation, and plus dyeing. You can the blue denims, we need toxic chemicals used to dye them, to color them, and this all is equivalent to 10,000 liters of water. And just imagine, we produce 5.6 billion jeans. A pair of jeans are consumed every year. Can you imagine how much water we actually waste? It is mind-boggling. On the other hand, you will see that many countries, they're dying of water, and that's why it's a very crisis situation. And these dyes contain toxic compounds and metals, and that affects the people who are living nearby, or factory workers, causing cancer, endocrine disruptors, affecting their hormonal system. And the dyeing process utilizes the huge amount of water. Is equivalent to 2 million Olympic-sized swimming pools each year. I was initially thought it is too much exaggeration, but the data came from World Economic Forum, WEF, which is basically a group of industrialists and rich countries who their own data actually showing that the dyeing process utilizes that 2 million Olympic-sized swimming pools per year. And the washing clothes produces so much microfibers. If you notice that when you dry clothes in dryer, we see a lot of small fibers, microfibers. Those microfibers are just like plastics, non-recyclable, and also it remains in the environment for hundreds of years. Since it is small in size, it can be consumed by small aquatic creatures and ultimately goes to food chain. And it is almost equivalent to 50 billion plastic bottles. So the clothes produces that much of microfiber across the world, which is equivalent to 50 billion plastic bottles. It is also data from World Economic Forum. And as you know, these microplastics has terrible impact on our health. So if you see the pictures in a lower part, you see the cost of I think it is Walmart, maybe US, I guess. I got it from Google. So 3.47 per cloth. So maybe in Canadian dollar, maybe $4.50 maybe. Just imagine one cloth costs that much, which is maybe cheaper than Starbucks coffee. So just imagine that we don't have any respect, no values, no concern for these clothes. If there is a minimum damage, we just simply throw them. And the right-hand side, you'll see it is a pristine. It was once a pristine desert in Chile. Now that is the favorite destination of dumping all these discarded clothes. These clothes are actually in good shape. I mean, people can wear it, but we are discarding because we don't want them. We want another fresh one. It's just paying $3-4. So that is our attitude. And this is an article I published in 2021. This is my first article on nanoplastic and microplastic. And this is basically a scoping review of how it is affecting human health. And it is a first review with a lot of articles which talked about potential human health, including endocrine disruption, immunological function disruption, all these kind of issues. And recently some Dutch scientists actually found plastics in our body, in our blood. I think all of you have heard that article, right? I mean, they found nanoplastic in human blood. So that means that we are actually, maybe that we today we have 27 people, including me, but I'm pretty sure that if we take blood from all of us, maybe 1/3, 1/4 of them might be having microplastic in our blood. Just imagine if we have microplastic or nanoplastic in our blood, that means it has a serious impact on mother and child health. It might cross placental barrier, we don't know. I mean, these are new science, new evidence coming up. maybe it can affect the fetal health. Who knows? So that's imagine how the things are actually going further inside. It is not a big plastic bag causing nuisance. It's the smallest part is actually reaching our different body system. So, so this is the seriousness of the problem. Now, then we talk about the green technology that some guys are coming up with a lot of interesting ideas and say that problem is solved. We have vehicles are emitting greenhouse gas, or the only way you can solve is that having electric vehicles. That as if the electric vehicles can solve the problem of the emission. But there are some lot of gaps. For example, if we get power, electricity by burning coal, no matter whether you are driving Tesla or driving any other electric car, the power is coming by burning coal, right? Whether you are burning gasoline or getting power by burning coal, it doesn't matter. So we have to be very careful by these narratives. Indeed, the electric vehicles have reduced the oil consumption. In 2019, it was 0.6 million barrel per day. Sounds very huge amount, and it is expected by 2030 decline by 2.5 million barrel per day. But the fact of the matter is that electric vehicles, the demand, because every country is now pledging that by 2030, all the cars will be converted into electric. And the projected demand is so much, it cannot be made by the best case scenario of promotion or the growth of solar power, solar photovoltaic cell or wind power. Because according to the IEA, that is the International Energy Association, which is the global body, most powerful body of energy association run by all powerful energy companies and multinational companies and the countries, OECD or rich countries, they say that in the best case scenario by 2030, we can produce maximum 500 gigawatt of, but only from electric vehicles. The way it is progress, I mean, all the companies are making EVs, we need 550 terawatt hour. That means it is huge gap. That means that renewable energy is not going to replace the fossil fuel power based energy. It is rather adding to our energy consumption because our incremental rise in energy consumption. So again, going back to the basic, that the way you are consuming, if you don't control that, no matter what new technology coming up, so-called green technology, it may not serve the purpose because the basic things, our consumption is not addressed. It seems that we keep on consuming as much as possible. Let's have new technologies which will be green and can solve the problem, will change the world. All these kind of slogans are coming up. And another current trend is, again, the promotion of nuclear power. See, after Fukushima disaster, nuclear power companies remained, they mellowed down, they remain little dormant, remain quiet. But what happened thanks to Ukraine war, the Europe decided that it is not possible to maintain the status quo, and power demand is increasing so much. It is not possible with the existing system to maintain that demand. And nuclear companies are taking that advantage of that. Even in COP27, they ganged up. They sent their own most powerful bodies. It is called, I think, World WNA, World Nuclear Association. There's a very powerful lobby. They send their huge team to Egypt now, and they're lobbying how to promote nuclear power as a green energy. And don't get surprised, the Canada is actually going to start new nuclear power. I mean, just few weeks ago, I got an email from my member university's research opportunities. NSHARC, NSHARC, and who is basically natural, like CIHR, Natural Science and Engineering Council, they ask for new proposal of nuclear power, for small scale nuclear power, the SMR, small modular reactors, which I wrote a publication a couple of years ago that I said SMR will be the mainstay for future nuclear power. Now, Canada actually already started now. That means that they're already investing money at the federal government doing research through universities, and soon there will be mushrooming of nuclear power, small scale nuclear power across the country, maybe 20, 30 years for sure. So this is another challenge we are actually facing now. Now coming back to the main problem, the consumerism and behavioral economics. See, as I mentioned, that we have a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction in it is driving us actually for unstoppable longing for materialistic things. We buy, don't get satisfied, and it is unending stories. Behavioral economics is actually a economic discipline, which is the combination of economics and human psychology, which studies actually the human behavior and what is the decision-making process. And it is not that we humans are always rational. We make a lot of decision anomalies. And interesting thing, behavioral economics is extensively used by corporate because they finally tune our behavior and attitude so that you will we get some kind of, the desire to buy, and there are different mechanisms like the every year changing your cell phone model, every year changing by new cell phone. You know that a few months ago there was a study showing that this year we are discarding 5 billion cell phones across the world, and none of the cell phones, some small parts, some very precious metals will be recovered, all will go to landfills. And why do we need cell phone every year? This all they use the behavioral economics just to young generation target different ways, and we consider our values are changing. Anything's old is should be discarded, kind of stuff. So, but my argument is that if behavioral economics can be used for negative way, but it can be used in positive way as well, because that decision anomalies can be finely tuned and to make it more pro environmental attitude. See that if it is personal satisfaction and a sense of well-being, which is a key of promoting minimalist lifestyle. The problem with the minimalist lifestyle is it is a very individual endeavor, but it can be institutionalized and it can be used in a more policy level. And it shows that our sense of well-being and satisfaction, of course, we need the basic services like basic healthcare, basic food, shelter, security, education, but it is found after certain level of basic requirement, if country's economy progresses, that doesn't mean that people become happier and happier. It is not directly proportional to always income. Up to certain level, yes, then it is not. So the idea of prosperity links with the happiness, it is not always true. Even if you see the happiness index was in European countries like in Denmark and Norwegian and Scandinavian countries, they are in per capita income wise, they are much lower than many other West European countries. But the reasons for their happiness is nothing to do with their income. They have all social system is such. That's why they remain high in the happiness index, including New Zealand. But on the other hand, Canada, US, UK, France, they are not that high. So it is not the income that makes a person happy. So that is a good learning experience that if you have proper social setup changing values, even if you reduce consumption, that will not make you sad. Rather, if you change attitude and link with your positive feeling that what you're doing for the betterment of the planet, perhaps that will give you more satisfaction. So this is the article I published in this year. And this is the first time I used how behavioral economic approach can be used to address consumerism and planetary health crisis. It is freely available. You can go to this journal and you can get it. So then comes circular economy. It is a very new idea and very popular even among the industrialists and corporate. But I find it is quite interesting thing because they are thinking because the amount of waste we generate in every production line, starting from extraction of the natural resources like iron ore or the fossil fuel from underground, so until the producing plastic and the use of stuff and the discarding, the current economic, I can show you the next slide. The on top, it is called linear economy. Linear economy is take, make, use, and discard. You're taking the huge natural resource from the planet, producing the product, transporting in different parts of the world, using them, and then discarding them. And the only 6 to 8% of the waste actually recycle, all are going to landfills. Or not even landfills sometimes. There's no landfill. Maybe just dumping ground. Circular economy is in this case a little better because it says that for each stage we produce some waste, and this waste goes to wasteland or somewhere. Circular economy is a technology that innovation that it is planned that all the waste we generate, it will be brought back to the production cycle. So in turn, our demand for natural virgin products will be less. So we don't need to exploit that much of natural resources, and so exploitation, so that contamination and the biodiversity loss will be less. For example, theoretically, the number of cell phones we have, and each cell phone contains some precious metals and minerals, and that is as a major concern now because those are not available everywhere. Some African countries, some in China, and some in Latin America. Now all the companies are going there. They are displacing the indigenous people and by deceit, and they are exploiting those and causing serious environmental damage. But according to circular economy, if you have proper product design, these cell phones, all the products can, if brought back to the production cycle, theoretically you don't need at one point of time to exploit those natural resources because all are already exploited, already actually in the market with our hands. So why don't we have proper recycling systems so that we can recover all elements, all the products, and can put in the production line. So that is the kind of theoretical concept. Still it is in the research, but in some cases it is getting successful. I got some funding for from Shark, the federal government funding for consumer durables in indigenous communities in Newfoundland. So I'll see how consumer durable the models can be properly put in the circular economy. Then come the ecological economics, which is different from the environmental or resource economics for the new classical economics, which is basically corporate driven economics. The environmental economics says that you just exploit the natural resource, all are infinite. Your development, your prosperity based on how much resource you consume. I mean, at one point of time in 60s, 70s, a country's economic prosperity was decided by how much fossil fuel they use per capita. So if you burn more fossil fuel, means you are more developed, and you know that what is the result. But ecological economics is a new discipline as compared to the traditional environmental economics. They say, no, this is absolutely flawed economics. Rather, we have to work with the ecology and economics, they work together. And they talked about the intergenerational equity, social justice, gender equity, and also cultural context, which is totally missing in the traditional market-driven economics. So I'll show you the example. See, in the left-hand side is environmental economics. So how economy treats ecosphere. The ecosphere is a source of resources, exploit as much as possible, and develop. So you exploit all the forest products, marine products, whatever, industry will flourish, you will earn money, there will be more job, and economy will develop, your GDP will go up, and that is the indicator of your economic development. But you have seen that that doesn't work because at one point of time, we reach the plateau and then decline. On the other hand, ecological economics, it's much more inclusive. If you see, the outer is the ecosphere, inside is the economy and society. The message is very clear. An economic interest and societal interest should not outsize the ecosphere. Environment is a top priority. We should be limited ourselves within the ecosphere. Means that is a priority. You have to preserve the environment. Even that means that your economic development is not as robust as we have seen in during the boom period, but at least it means that our growth is sustainable. So that is a debate, and you can see that the difference between the market-driven environmental economics and ecological economics. So what is minimalonomics then? The minimalonomics, what I found that we need these three, because only the behavioral part, minimalist lifestyle may not solve the problem, because you need support system to address the other aspects. So people might say, what is a big deal? I mean, many people are understanding the knowing that the benefits of low consumption. We can do that. I mean, what is a new thing? We can promote it by educations, by awareness. Some people say, what is a new thing for behavioral economics? People are doing it. We can actually implement in our policy also. Same with the circular economy, ecological economics. But problem is that these all are working in isolation, and there is no convergence of this concept. Minimalist economics is giving a kind of common platform where all these concepts can be brought together. Because we found that the moment you talk about reducing consumption only, immediately you will be attacked by those who believe in consumption, that, okay, if you don't buy clothes, the industry will collapse. The retail store will stop. Already we are having the massive job loss and the recession. You are actually promoting more recession. So this kind of argument will come forward if we take one particular issue. But if you inclusive, then then you will see that that is not the case, because if you take one particular industry, maybe it will be difficult to argue. But if you take the inclusive, the global perspective, it is not. I'm giving an example. Say that in Hurricane Ian, it is one of the second most expensive hurricane in US history after Hurricane Katrina. And Florida encountered $54 billion loss, insurable loss. And that not necessarily that they will get insurance, but they have that figure. And that are the data, I got it from the magazine called Economist. But they also say that that is a very conservative figure. It might be more, maybe double. Now, a state like Florida, one hurricane resulted in, say, almost 80-90 billion dollars. Now in November they had Hurricane Nicole. Now just imagine, in a climate change we are having more and more frequent such kind of extreme weather conditions. So if Florida encounters 5 to 10 such hurricanes in a year, almost equivalent to 500 to 700 billion dollar loss. And remember, if that happens more frequently, people don't have resilience, don't have time to adapt and go back to the normal. That means that there is a permanent loss of damage, property loss, livelihood loss, and total decimation of the many societies. That costs almost $500 billion for a state. If that happens, it is very understandable that traditional economies, even if you get money by taxing the retail store and sell tax and all this traditional way of prosperity, at one point of time, the loss will definitely supersede the prosperity. So the argument of that modern economics, that we need more growth, more production, because we need more money, and we need better quality of life. All these traditional definition ultimately cannot continue, because everything is overstretched, and now we are getting more negative impact because of this planetary health crisis. So here actually the minimalonomics can actually give a proper argument that only not one particular type of approach is sufficient. We need to integrate all, because it is not a development of one particular sectors is important. Also, it is a total development, not only the development of one particular state or province, the global development, because we're living in a global society. I can give you an example now that will give you, maybe that will more clarify the concept. So this is the article I published just a few months ago. So how this minimalonomics work? See, if you see this red one, that is a traditional linear economy. We extract natural resource, make the material, then make the component, then make the end product, then retail, then consumer consuming it, and ultimately going to landfills. During that process, we have labor exploitation, because many of the products are actually produced in developing countries. That's why it's cheaper. There is no labor law, no labor protection. So that is one aspect. You have environmental contamination, biodiversity loss in those countries, greenhouse gas emission in those areas, and also threatening environmental sustainability and exceeding Earth's carrying capacity. So that is what is happening now. The behavioral economics actually promoting this minimalist lifestyle, mostly interfering the retailing and consumption and the way you are managing the waste. That includes the effective communication and definitely our own environmentally responsible behavior. Will make sure that we will buy the product which is environment friendly, will reduce the unnecessary consumption kind of thing. But if you look circular economy, it is it is benefiting the every steps of the production, production line, starting from the extraction to the landfill. So we will talk about the refuse. The refuse is important part of circular economy. It is a conscious decision that we will not buy or use the products from the companies who are known to be very destructive to the environment and having the very bad reputation. Also, we have to bring back the culture of reuse and repair. See that, imagine nowadays the concept of repair doesn't exist. If you have any product having minimum damage, it's some minimum, but can be functional by just changing one small spare parts. But the market is made in such a way, the spare parts are very expensive, and the labor cost is so high, ultimately you will be encouraged to buy a new product. And that is it's a planned obsolescence actually is also another reason. The way market is made, that suppose if you have a refrigerator which is maybe 10 years old, working very well, there might be some minimum technical fault. The person might say, okay, this spare parts cost maybe $300-400 and labor cost maybe $300-400. Then you might think, why should I pay $600-700 for the one small thing? Maybe that we are getting some cheaper, I mean, in some sale, maybe $1,700-1,800. Okay, let's have the next 10 years, I don't have any problem. So this kind of, the market driven ideas is making us in such a way that we are forgetting the culture of repair. That's why now people are bringing back the idea of the demanding the rights for repair. Because the repairing culture should come back. Otherwise, the new products, too many new products are actually going to affect significantly with the environment. That's why my project, which is going to start soon in the on consumer durables in the indigenous communities, Newfoundland, that how the lack of repair and refurbish and reuse actually affecting their ecosystem. I have seen their communities. I'm working with them for the last 10 years. That some of the areas actually you will feel bad and feel guilt that it is basically a huge landfills which is full of discarded, the washing machine and the televisions and the refrigerators. Some of them actually could have been used if they had proper repairing facilities. So that is a circular economy, and ecological economics is very important because we'll talk about equity, gender equity, fair distribution of these are the part which is of often neglect. And also one important thing I would like to tell you that when you talk about the consumption reduction in the developed countries, but also we have billions of population other part of the world who don't have basic services. Still they're struggling for basic needs like water or shelter and health and education. So talking about the minimalist lifestyle to them it's a very it's a cruel joke. So we need the level playing. One hand, we have to provide them basic services to improve their quality of life. On the other hand, for us, we are living in the developed countries, we are consuming too much, we have to reduce the consumption. There should be more equality and equity and justice. And Minimalonomics strongly advocate that. So now coming to the last part of my presentation is how this Minimalonomics can be applicable in health systems. Some of the things we are actually doing, it's like promotion of local fresh products and plant-based products. I know that I've got some emails that in Ontario, some of the hospitals and some of the groups are actually working on that. Then no waste of food. See, we have seen the way the food we waste in conference, in the seminars, and that is insane. In one hand, Canada has 6 to 7% population, which is the malnourished, the food insecure. On the other hand, we are wasting food. It's a criminal offense. Then minimum use of paper, ink, and energy and water. appropriate use and accessible facility for recyclable and compostable products. That is also in hospitals. It is a notorious, some of the hospitals, like I have seen in the health science center and Memorial University, we don't have a good recycling facility. All are going to the same bin, and ultimately it is all going to landfills. So, and also that, I mean, our own behavior, that instead of having three, going to Tim Hortons, producing 3 cups waste cups and the plastics, why don't we have a culture of bringing your own cups and mugs and cutleries, biking lanes and regular workshop? Now people say what it is fine with how behavioral economics is involved. It is a normal things, we can do that. This found that if you make it voluntary approach and if you make it voluntary offer, it may not work. So we need some kind of nudging, some kind of system, and make the choice architecture in such a way that people will be encouraged to do that, and they will think that they are having some economic benefit out of it, or some kind of changing behavior. So just simply offering fresh plant-based products may not work until as we make some kind of tricks so that the people will be encouraged and motivated. And there are a lot of examples on that, how to promote the vegetarian food even in restaurant by changing the menu style and the structure and the pictures and the photography that actually encourage people to go for more vegetarian food than non-vegetarian food. So there are plenty of examples, and we can actually borrow those examples and apply in a healthcare setting to make sure people, because you cannot force them. It cannot make a draconian rules that to force them, but it will be more voluntary. But you make a system in such a way people will be automatically, without knowing, they will accept this pro-environmental behavior. And the circular economy for the hospital also, that when hospital buys and procure some purchasing products, make sure that they're selecting the companies which are known for wrong or known for circular economy, to select those companies. So it will be a strategy will be to select the companies which are known for to not greenwashing, but truly following the environmental all norms. And that will have a ripple effect, positive ripple effect across the board, because the way, if not one hospitals, all the hospitals in Ontario or Canada, if or North America, they make conscious decision to select the product, procuring the purchase based on the environmental footprint of the companies, definitely it is going to improve the overall corporate practice. If not 100%, at least it may improve partly. And also there is a kind of discussion with the or negotiation with the companies regarding the product and product taking back the product if it is old, or repairing something. That so there should be it should not happen that all the products which are hospitals are buying, whether the machine tools or anything, ultimately all are going to landfills, because there is no understanding of the manufacturer to take them back. So the circular economy concept should be implemented in a healthcare setting, and there are examples how it is coming up in many hospitals. I know in UK some of the hospitals are actually doing very good in bringing the circular economy in their own hospital setup. The last is the ecological economics. It's basically, again, the hospital care can buy a hospital healthcare system can select the companies or products who are having better record of ESG. ESG means environmental sustainability and governance, good labor practice, gender equity, and also the low and water and carbon footprint. And again, I'm saying that if it is not possible for one hospital working in isolation, because it needs some resources to identify which companies are genuinely following the proper environmental practices. So it might be that it is a consortium of the hospitals and the healthcare setting can pull up some resources and identify and prioritize the companies or manufacturer who can be trusted and can be part of their regular business. And I mean, taking care of the environment friendly alternatives, prioritizing them, and of course, natural resource management, all these things can be done. So this is my vision, that how minimalonomics can be applicable in healthcare setting. This is my last slide. So what's next? As I mentioned, this is the new concept I have developed. Now I am teaming up with some economists and some developmental professionals and environmental health professionals, and also the medical professionals, public health professionals. And we are trying to refine the concept. I was told by many economists that we have to develop the theory, because otherwise, if we don't develop the theory, what we have now is a concept, theoretical concept, and we have to do some field testing, experimental economic, like maybe the randomized control trial of controlling the intervention, non-intervention area, to see the how best we can develop this mechanism in rural areas, urban areas, and different industrial setups, and developing theories. And that when the theory is being developed, then it will be easier for us to make the application also, and it will be more the people will trust, and the policymakers also like it. But it is a long way to go, I understand. But also we have to understand that we are in a crisis mode. We cannot simply sit back and take it as a normal pace. So we have to aggressively move forward. And I'm looking forward to make my team. But problem with my place in Newfoundland, it is a bit isolated. So I'm trying to reach out to some professionals across the country and also outside Canada. And I hope soon we can make some progress. And now these are the references, and there are a lot of references, and you can see that if you see the link, you can get supportive documents. With that, thank you for your attention. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to put all the things together in one framework and fit them together. I think thanks, Brent, for putting the link for another degrowth article. I think it's a framework that we all want to work with. I think it's, I know that I'm frustrated myself that we're sometimes alone in this, and politicians and other aspects of society are not moving forward with this. So this will open it up for people's questions. I think there are some in the chat, and I'll hand it over to Caroline to be in charge of the question and answer period.
Thanks, Gilly, and Atanu, thank you for a great talk. I just want to comment that obviously you're talking to a certain audience, and we're all fairly on board as participants and attendees at this talk. And it always strikes me that Gilly just mentioned, sort of quote, feeling alone in this. And I look at the, I look at the experience I go through, once a week going shopping, and how I have to go to certain stores to get the non-packaged goods. I'm charged more. When I go to regular stores, I have to say, no bags, no this, no that. I put the grapes in my, little produce bag. Nobody else does it. It's so on and so forth. It is a frustrating thing because we know the right thing. We know what we should be doing. And it really needs to come from the top down. It's got to be like when you have that circle, that circle within which we have ourselves and the economy is that environmental lens. And we're just not doing anything, we're not doing enough through that lens. So that's the issue. To me, everything should be done through that lens. And, whether it's through in medicine, in consumption, in heating our homes, like it has to come from the top down. And every single talk we have, I think about that, because doing it from the ground up, there's just not enough people screaming in rage. There's no tipping point yet. So I did want to thank you, but it's, I feel that frustration. I wanted to ask a couple of questions that people are asking. Certainly, Tila Johnson says every company should have to take back their old products. It should be built into consumption. So that would have to be, legislated, et cetera. And I just want to know if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Carolina, that it should come from top. And also, Tila mentioned that it is really frustrating because if you leave everything voluntary, you have no control. I mean, there is no reward or incentives if you follow that. I mean, you feel good, that is fine. You think that you are doing good job, you are caring for your mother nature, but that doesn't work in a mass scale. So it needs a strong regulatory system. That's why in behavioral economics, it is called green default rules. No matter what, for example, energy efficient product. I mean, you should not give a consumer a choice. Okay, we are living in a democratic system. Let people decide. We'll have an energy efficient system, a non-energy efficient machine. Let us decide who will buy what. That is not should not work. It should be a rule that we have a system technology which is energy efficient that should be promoted. Period. No matter what. So the too much. I mean, we talk about sometimes we have a very distorted view of democratics and rights. Sometimes that actually backfires, and that is actually, for example, plastic bags. If you make a ban totally across the board, blanket ban of plastic bags, then things work. Sometimes you have to, a country has to take the very firm rule. For example, very good example I'm telling you, Canadian example. I mean, it happened in Canada. For example, the Montreal Protocol for that, we have the CFC, which is basically causing UV, all this, the problem with because of the ozone depletion chemicals. What happened? It was blanket ban of the products which are producing CFC, no matter what. I mean, it took times to implement, but there was no such thing that you have to do that. And ultimately, what happened? Benefit. We are now showing the repair of those ozone holes. Even, sorry, there is some secret production in China that is causing some issues, but overall, it shows an example. We have example in our hand how Montreal Protocol actually saved the planet. I mean, it is example that the regulatory system is the mainstay. We individual citizens can do that, but otherwise, what you rightly mentioned, that it should come from top. Some of the cases, it is beyond your control. But, sorry, but the behavioral economics has one interesting thing that if instead of giving voluntary approach, whether you will go eat meat or vegetarian food, or you will buy CFL bulb, LED bulb, or incandescent bulb, if you say that let's give the choice to the people, then you'll definitely some people still buy the non-environment friendly. But behavioral economics is basically using nudging and kind of incentivize. If you incentivize different innovative ways, people will go for that. For example, it's not as simply saying that this bulb is going to work for 10,000 hours and you can save, say, $200 if you for whole life. I mean, but if you make it marketing right way, you can actually do that. But again, I'm telling you, it's a very intensive work. It is not a responsibility of one individual or group. And again, I support what you say, that federal government or provincial government, the government has to be active partner of that. I completely agree with that.
Thank you.
Would it be okay if I added a tiny comment to that response?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to say I totally agree with you about how you're the person in the store rejecting everything and bringing out all your special stuff. But I do agree that regulatory, we need government to help us with this, and in order for anything to really change. And I feel that corporations are a good place to start, because in general, everyone can say, okay, yeah, make a corporation, like do the right thing, because at the end of the day, corporations have put us into this situation largely. But I do think, I was reading some interesting social studies recently about how we're all separated by like 6 degrees of separation or something like that. And so even though it feels like what you're doing isn't making a difference, and true, it might not be enough of a difference to save us all within like a reasonable time frame, you are still making an impact, even if it's just among your 2nd and 3rd degree of separation people, because you really do, the things that you do really do sort of percolate through society, and it does really make a difference. So just to add that little encouragement as you fight the daily fight.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, I think the best example is Health Canada's the pesticide regulation. It's so frustrating. I mean, it's so frustrating that sometimes it seems that it's a lost game. The Canada's I mean, the image of managing pesticide is one of the worst among all the developed countries. And that is frustrating because some of the pesticides we still struggling whether glyphosate will be banned or not. I mean, all these things still happening. There are so much scientific evidence are there, but their regulatory system is sometimes so much controlled by some corporate. So corporate, see, we cannot live without them because they are the ultimate manufacturer, but it is a civil society should have some say and some place to have the right knowledge and to pull the right strings so that things will move in the right direction. I know it is very uh, it's a very tricky and very challenging, but we have to work. There is no other chance. We cannot give up. So that is the thing.
I'm gonna ask, thank you so much. I'm gonna just make sure that all the questions get answered. So I'm gonna plow through a few more here for you. So Nahid Azad has a request for you. That could you place the references for your 2 articles that you published? Can you put them in the chat at some point?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you go ahead. I can just
Yeah.
check.
Maybe just go back to your slide with the references so people could
Yeah, that might
copy
be.
it then.
Okay, I'm just going to the. So this is the article. If you just simply the type minimum, because there is no one talked about minimal, only me. So you just going to Google, you can get type Minimalonomics, you get the article. But this article you have to pay. But I'll be more than happy to share with the main article, or with that understanding you are not going to share with the commercial all this blah 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 blah. So I can actually send the article to Ankita, and Ankita can share with you.
Okay, and is there another one? Is there another article?
Yeah, this is you just go to Google and type Minimalonomics, you get this article.
Can you put it in the chat?
Yes. So this is the article link.
Perfect, thank you.
Just a minute. Just give me a few seconds. I can go to the Google. You ask me question. Meanwhile, I'm just.
Yeah. Okay. And if there's I think there was at least one more article that you wrote that you could also, if you don't mind putting that link into.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Sarkar, this one's in the chat already. Thank you, Dr. Tuck, for putting that there.
Oh yeah.
Go to the other one.
So okay, so another one is that is freely available. It is this is I'm just let me know that you are getting it. This is the title, and this is the DOI number.
I see it. So you've put it in and Dr. Tux put the other one in. Okay, thank you.
This is the DOI number.
Okay, I see them in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can give you another article which is on microplastic.
Yeah.
That is actually getting a lot of good, almost within a year, I have almost 300 citation. That means people are actually getting interested, and people are now working on that also. Yeah. So this is in the PubMed already, and this is the article. This is scoping review. This is the okay. This is the DOI number.
Okay,
DOI.
it's in the chat now.
Yeah.
So another question is from Matthew Gatien, who says, great talk. Would you be able to tell us which are your favorite books that focus on which behaviors we could each incorporate in our individual lives to contribute to better planetary health? So any books that you could recommend there?
Yeah, that is actually, I read a couple of books on, see that there is a, this famous book actually that is talk of minimalist lifestyle, Marie Kondo, she's famous for, she from Japan, minimalist lifestyle. But I think if you go to the Google, you can get the book Marie Kondo, Mari, I think Condo, I guess, and minimalist lifestyle. That book is famous. People liked, love the book. So many copies are sold. This is the first time she talked about, but she did not talk from the climate change point of view. This is basically to more aesthetic and more of course environmental behavior was a part of it. And I read another book on behavioral economics or core. I don't know full name. It is CORR, I think, behavioral economics. It is a handbook. And that book is really for beginners. It is, I think, he's the core CORR. I think I can actually get. Let me see the actual. Because I see I am not typical economics guy. I mean, I am during pandemic when there was a lockdown. I issued a lot of books from library, and I kept on reading like voracious reader each and every. Then I got interest. So it is all new. My new love, for the discipline which I had no idea even 3 years ago. So I'm just developing this concept now, and I'm now getting a lot of support from the experts. So
I think
don't-
Gilly's put in the chat the Zero Waste Home.
yeah, that is also a good book,
She's
actually.
put it in. She's put it
Yeah.
in. I think Gilly also, I think she's got her hand up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gilly.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Caroline. I had a question. Do you know of risk factors for having microplastics in your blood?
Well, microplastic, actually, it is not it's called not nanoplastic. Microplastic is quite big for blood. It's called nano,
Okay,
further smaller.
sorry.
But it's
Mhm.
fine. I mean, all belong to micro. I'm not going for that semantic debate.
Yeah.
So first of all, these plastics, the nanoplastics are also, one is their vector for other chemicals, because many pesticides, many organic hydrocarbons easily get absorbed by the plastics because the plastics property, plastic, and if you keep the pesticide, some pesticide remain in the plastic molecules for years because that absorbing capacity. So when you are exposed to nanoplastics, you are simultaneously exposed to other chemicals also. That is one. Also, this plastic itself, it can cause a lot of inflammatory response because it's a foreign particle. And that inflammatory response, and some of the, say, plastic is very broad term, The plastic has different types of, thousands of different types of plastics, different molecular weight, different molecular configuration. Because plastic is a very broad, a very layman's term we use, but chemical wise, it is different, thousands of different chemicals. Some of the chemicals are endocrine disruptors, that endocrine disrupting chemicals, which is structurally very similar to hormones, and body cannot recognize them. The body recognize them as a normal hormone. And our hypothalamus pituitary actions system, they get befooled by those chemicals like PCBs and other chemicals. So some of the plastics, actually, some of the leach, and they might act as endocrine disruptors. Then third is, some of the cases have physical barrier. Sometimes they might clog the microvessels. So there is a kind of, people might say, almost like particulate matters, PM 2.5, air pollution. When you are exposed to particulate matters, when inhaling them and going to bloodstream, it can cause some inflammatory response in the intimal layer of the blood vessels. So what happens when there is a inflammation to blood vessels? It will be thickening of the blood vessels. So the narrow lumen will be narrow, right? So that's why you'll find those people are exposed to high level of particulate matters. They have ischemic heart disease because of pre-existing medical condition. People believe, because nanoplastic is very new now, because the Dutch scientists, they discovered nanoplastics in a human blood just, I think, 5-6 months ago. So it is just very, very recent. Earlier, this is the first time. If you go to Google, and type then plastic human blood, I think you will find that article, which is, I think, published in Environment International Journal. And so now newer evidence. So the article actually, I was coming back to your original questions. There are different ways plastics can react to the human body. One is a very bad inflammatory response. Of course, the endocrine disrupting chemicals, and physically causing barrier to, because it is quite large as compared to molecules, it might cause typical foreign body reactions to many organs. So these are things currently people are having, but the articles I have published, if you have access to that, I mean, if you need, I can send you the full article that gives full detail about the impact of the plastics on the human body. Yes.
Thank you. So like with the issue of plastics, is like, you know, the Canadian government said that they were going to get rid of certain disposable plastics by 2021. It never happened. Now they're talking about 2023, but even though there's only 6 of them, they're still allowing plastic bottles and many, many other plastics. I see, as a family physician, parents are coming in talking about feeding their babies with pouches of food. And I say, what do you mean a pouch? What food are you making that comes in a pouch? And they bring out these little, you've seen them. They have these plastic tops, plastic bodies. They're about the size of your palm. And they have this puree food that you could make in about 2 seconds with a double boiler and a blender, or mashing it with a fork. And I say, take them away. I said, never give that to your baby. But it's sold in a, quote, natural food store near me called Moberly's by the case. And I have a neighbor who feeds 6 of these a day to his 4-year-old, claiming that's all he'll eat. So I mean, this is our government allowing us to get polluted and
Absolutely.
letting us down in an egregious way. I have a question from Matthew Gatien. He says, oh, no, I already did that one. Just a sec. Yeah, sorry. Garen Aronian. Is there an easily accessible list of companies who are not just greenwashing and are using ecologically positive processes? An accessible list of such companies?
It's a very tricky question, because there is no easy way to navigate and reach the question. There are some environmental activists actually doing this. I am not expert in this field, but I know that CAPE is actually, like, we can ask CAPE because they have more access to resources. CAPE is not doing directly, but they have access to the organizations who are genuinely identifying the companies who are not doing greenwash, but doing genuinely good work. So definitely the CAPE is the best resources. I mean, I am aware of. And regarding this, Caroline, you talked about this plastic. It shows that it is the human nature of matter of convenience, because it is a convenience for the people to use those plastics, because it is money saving time, and also maybe cheaper. But of course, it shows the big holes, the gaps in regulatory system. That is called. See the tea bags, for example. Even in Montreal, a lady, I forgot her name. She became a global news actually a few years ago. She first time identified that tea bags contains millions of plastics. So we take tea, we use it, we dip the tea bags. The tea bag is not a matter of paper; it's a matter of plastics, right? The bag is not it's not a biodegradable stuff. We are be fooled by that. And those tea bags contains millions of plastics, microplastics coming to nanoplastic coming to a tea. You are sipping, oh, healthy tea, green tea, but you are actually getting microplastics. So, and the plastic, other plastic, for example, the plastic bottles, which contain microplastics, salt, many sea salt, which is considered to be the very healthy, but sea salt contains a lot of plastic because the way they process, they cannot remove plastics. So microplastic, you can get it in many places. You have to be very careful, because on this natural products, this is the fad. This is all sham. I mean, how these natural products are being allowed, I can understand that it is again putting big question mark on regulatory system. Our health is totally destroyed by this kind of sham regulation, and This natural is also marketing strategy. All are useless.
Yeah, the marketing's huge, and just using the word natural product, they'll assume that it's healthy and it's in a plastic container, for instance, and it may have plastics in it or not necessarily be healthy, for sure.
Absolutely.
I want to just comment that Naomi commented that the Better World Shopping Guide, 7th edition by Ella Jones,
Yes, yes.
may have the list of those companies. So just back to, okay, so Benjamin says, Benjamin Bordoff says, great talk. In my community, there is a plan to close 2 acute care hospital campuses and move to a single, quote, mega hospital site on active farmland in a floodplain remotely located, i.e. less accessible by active or public transit for the city's most vulnerable, impoverished, new Canadians, refugees, etc., mindful of hospital bylaws which prohibit their public critique by physicians with privileges. How should I challenge their environmental folly?
That is the perennial problem in the whole country, or maybe the other countries, that there's so much lobbies actually. We don't know what are the interest groups actually play the role hospitals in the floodplain and these environmentally vulnerable areas. I don't know whose interest will be served, but there is a corruption. These are the corruption. There's a corruption, and it's a white collar corruption everywhere. And
we were asking what community, Benjamin, if you can just unmute yourself and please tell us what community you are from.
Yes, I practice in Windsor, Ontario, where I also live.
Thank you.
I mean, I was thank you for this information. I was told by one of the small communities near Thunder Bay, beyond Thunder Bay. They're very much concerned about the Canadian government's new policy of using the nuclear waste in the underground somewhere in Saskatchewan or somewhere in northern Ontario, and they fear that underground nuclear waste can contaminate the groundwater. So there are things that are happening in secretly. Many people are not aware of that. And those small communities are very much concerned, because if their groundwater is polluted, they don't have drinking water, or they have to buy only bottled water then.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I just wanted to add, Benjamin, are you familiar with OCAC, with the Ontario Climate Emergency Campaign?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot. It would be helpful to lobby and get other people. I'm sure there are other people from the Windsor area, and lobby your MPP. Sometimes
this has been kicked up considerably to the inner sanctum of Queen's Park, I assure you. Yet any legal mechanism that could conceivably exist doesn't at this point. Every possibility has been exhausted, and the recent municipal elections indicate that there are not a majority of people particularly concerned about this issue. Although there are many. It was like there was quite a pushback. I wouldn't say it was a referendum by any stretch, but it certainly did come up, and it was a polarizing issue, to be sure. Anyway, I'll just stop there. Thank you.
It's like, we're fighting windmills constantly, and the green belt is another very urgent thing. But
thank you, Benjamin. There was a comment here by Beverly Goodwin. She's asking, has anybody read or reviewed the book called Voluntary Simplicity by Dwayne Elgin? And she comments, older, even the revised version sounds very topical, but unsure if it's a bit dated. So she may want to talk to anyone. I'm not familiar with the book, but if anyone has.
I'm sorry, I did not, but can you put in a chat the book? I feel I can copy paste.
It's in the chat. Beverly's put it in. I don't know, Beverly, if you want to unmute yourself and elaborate, but she's put it in the chat, like the link in the chat.
Oh, I got it. Voluntary Dwayne Elgin, right? I can copy paste that.
Dwayne Elgin, Voluntary Simplicity.
Yes, I was just looking into some resources. Hi, Bev Goodwin here. Just looking into some resources around the concept of voluntary simplicity for ecological and other benefits. And that book came up as what seemed to be a bit of a classic in the area. Came out in the 80s and was revised again around the turn of the millennium. So I just didn't know if there were others like that, or if people were familiar with that book, just in terms of trying to marry our personal choices with the ecological benefits of simplifying, consuming less, et cetera, et cetera. That one just seemed to come up as a bit of a classic.
Yeah, I copy pasted that link. I think I will buy that book. It seems to be interesting. Thank you for that. There's so many books. Actually, it's good that you have given this link. I mean, I have to get all this background information because things are getting more complex. I won't like going deeper. I really appreciate the books links you have sent me, and another book. I will definitely refer them.
Okay, good. And Karen just commented, Karen Heisman. Benjamin, what about trying TVO Steve Paikin and or CBC to see if either are interested in highlighting the situation you spoke of? So getting it out in the media, she's suggesting to Benjamin.
Yeah, TVO. I was interviewed by once Steve Paikin in TVO when I was at Queen's on local food. He came to actually to our Queen's campus. You know, it was interesting.
Yeah, sometimes you got to get things out there in the media, and then
media is actually double-edged sword. I mean, you have to be very careful because sometimes they want a little bit sensationalizing the things. You know, if it is not very sexy, then sometimes they don't get interested. I remember there was a in St. John's, western part of St. John's, there was manganese. They found manganese in water, drinking water, not that high, but they wanted to highlight that how city failed to address this. So, but they invited me because I am known local water, health, and all the expert. I mean, I don't know why they should. They tell me. So I just said, look, I know it is an issue. It is not like arsenic or lead in water. So manganese is also essential part of nutrients, and the level, it is not that alarming. And CBC guys were not very happy with my answer. They wanted to hear that it is almost killing people. I said, which if it is not, why should I create panic? So there is some problem with some media, but also it is true that without media we cannot move, because media actually gives a more positive, is impetus to move forward. So I think so we have to be very careful the way the narratives we have to make. It should not be very sensationalizing and very dramatic thing, but definitely the full of scientific information should be given to. But I have good relations local CBC for a number of activities. I have no complaint, but sometimes they're a little bit. Sometimes they want, so they would, because they have to sell the news, right? I mean,
yeah, well, it's a news outlet. So I think I've gone through everybody's questions and comments before I hand it back to Gilly. To conclude, I just wonder if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask any just questions verbally. Anyone raising their virtual hand? I don't think so.
I'm stop sharing now. Am I?
I'll hand it back to Gilly to conclude. And
okay, so thank you so much, Atanu, for joining us. And it was a great talk. I really appreciate the reminder. We talk about energy transition all the time, but I think this is such an important part of refusing and degrowth. And there's lots out there, lots of books, and even degrowth conferences. And we're just hopeful that there will be other people as enthusiastic about this as we are. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thanks everybody for coming to the webinar so late after a full day's work, probably.
Thank you really, Juliet and Ankita and all of you for sparing your time. And it is so motivating for me, because more and more feedback I get from you, and it motivates me to work it further, because I was initially a bit hesitant. People might should not ridicule me that what I'm doing it. So initially it was my response when I first introduced. People struggle to pronounce it also. So, but I'm happy to see that you tried and you remembered that. I mean, it is a great motivation for me that people are remembering slowly. But
Minimal
and it happened. I mean, it happened. I mean,
Minimalonomics.
yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And it is tongue twister, but it is good for tongue twister also. It is nice. What I find today, it is it was second conference, and the kind of feedback you gave, it will definitely help me, motivate me, and I'm working, and I'll keep you updated also. I have your contacts. Anything new things come up, just to put in cap, and also I'll let you know the in anything say interesting, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you so much. And the resources will be posted on our next newsletter. And as always, the video of this webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel and the link in our next newsletter.
So when
Okay,
the
thank you
newsletter
so
will
much.
come up? When the newsletter will come up? Which month?
I'm not sure. Tomorrow we have our next newsletter, but I think it'll be in 2 weeks. We won't be
Okay.
able to make it for tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, but it'll always be on our YouTube channel as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for
Okay,
your
thank
time.
you. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.